In this lecture, we're going to build out the more user info command. Now, to review the syntax of this command, let's look at the man page that we built. I'm going to start the app up and call help. We can see that the more user info command is supposed to be specified by the admin as more user info and then 2 dashes and then a user ID. On the assumption that they are using the syntax correctly, we can actually look at the text that they sent in, split this string in half on the 2 dashes, and then we'll know that everything to the right of the 2 dashes is the user ID. So let's build out a command responder that way. I'm going to scroll down to where we've filled in the placeholder for more user info, get rid of this console.log. Now, the first thing we need to do, as I mentioned, is get the ID from the string that's being provided to us in the str variable. So the first thing we'll do is split this string into an array. So the array equals string split, and we want to split on dash dash. So we're going to say that user ID equals the second element in the array, as long as the second element in the array is a string with a length greater than 0. So we're going to say that R1 should equal a string and R1 trim length is greater than 0. If so, we will use it. We'll just trim it first, or default to false. Now, of course, we only want to continue if we have a truthy variable defined. Otherwise, we'll just ignore it. Now that we have a user ID, let's look the user up. Using the data library, we're going to do data read from the user's collection by this user ID, and then we're going to expect back an error and user data. If there isn't an error and there is user data, we'll continue. Otherwise, we will do nothing. So the first thing that we need to do before returning the user data to the console is remove the hashed password. Because in our scenario, even the admin using the CLI tool doesn't really have a good reason for needing to see the hashed password of a user. And so we're going to delete that from the user data object before logging it out. Then we want to print the JSON object of that user with text highlighting. By default, when you log out a JSON object, it's just going to come out in whatever text color your console has set, and it won't be pretty printed in any way. When you log out large objects, they're very hard to grok. And so rather than do that, we want to print out a vertical space, and then rather than use console.log, we're going to use console.dir and pass that the user data object, and then also pass console.dir a configuration object telling it colors are true. Then another vertical space. To see how this logged out object looks, let's start up the app. First, we're going to ask it to list users. Now that we have a user ID, aka a phone number, we can ask it a follow-up question, more user info dash dash this phone number. And it just printed out this object. As you can see, it's not just a long JSON string. It's actually the JS object with text highlighting. Now that the more user info command is working, we can move on to the next lecture.